Well, he's not recording. I am on my computer.
All right.
Okay. All right, so the first item of business then would be the year-end transfers. I believe we're being asked to vote on transfers. This is typically something that is routinely done to help us close out the books at the end of the fiscal year. And Linda, are you? Sure.
So yes, this is the, we have a $20 million general fund budget. And everyone does the best they can, year and a half in advance. And we get through the year and you get, when we finish up the year, there's always some budgets that just didn't make it and others that have plenty of money in them or have enough money in them. So we have to do this. We have to balance the budgets by taking from some of the budgets that have the excess funds and moving into the ones that have the deficits. We have to cover all of our deficits. Any deficit would be deducted from our free cash certification on July 1. So this is an exercise in straightening that out. The one where you see Finance Committee signatures, we went through that in detail on Monday evening, and you can see there were 4 of them present and they signed. Since Monday, and I was not aware of this at the time, but after that, they posted the last payroll, which was actually half a payroll. And then encumbrances from departments were due. Encumbrances are, I know I spent this money in June, but the bill hasn't come in yet, so I can't pay it without an invoice. So please set aside this money for me so when it comes in, I can pay it. So those are the encumbrances. Those had to be factored in as well. And so we have this second sheet, which the Finance Committee did not sign yet, which is what we're calling that the supplemental transfers. And I did talk with Jared. I said, is it necessary to bring Finance Committee back in for part 2? Or can we just get signatures from the select board and catch up with Finance Committee at their next meeting? And he said that would be fine. So I don't know if you want me to go through it or if you've had a chance to look at it and just want to vote, whichever you like.
Maybe, I think it might be helpful just maybe to hit the larger items, Linda.
Hit the large? Okay, on the first page, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 budgets that are.
Excuse me, could you give me the heading for the first page?
They both say the same. There's one that has signatures on it, which Finance Committee reviewed. We didn't.
I got that one.
Okay.
Thank you.
So that's the one that we went over on Monday night. And if you look over in the notes section, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 budgets where they say department's budget not overspent. If you recall, when we go to town meeting and we vote on the budgets for each department, there are 2 parts of it. One is salaries and one is expenses. So these departments did not overspend their bottom line, but they need it moved mostly from salaries into expenses to cover that and just get it in the right category. So that's about half of the items here. Included here too is we do that balancing out of debt and interest. I have a total amount that's paid off to our short-term borrowing each year. We don't know until we do the borrowing how much is going to be interest. If our interest goes down, I get to pay more in principal. And if it goes up, I pay less in principal, but either way, we pay the same bottom line. And so that transfer is just from the interest into the principal budget. The Medicare one, there's also the section of the budget, which is all the 900s, and we just say benefits and insurance. They are voted separately, but we look at them as a group. And in this case, we have Medicare was underspent, but there was extra money in insurance. So I do like to make the point when any budget stays within what was what they had originally budgeted. We have here the benefits budget total is not overspent. So we just moved it between insurance and Medicare. The largest, we have a couple of the larger ones here. They're very easily explained. The numbers are bigger than the issues, really. The case of the fire engine, 34,000. This was a reserve fund transfer request from the fire chief early in the year, and the processing got dropped somewhere along the line. And so we need to, that's a direct That's basically, now we just put it on here to take care of everything in one swoop. That's the move, that's the reserve fund transfer he had moved. It would not be on here if we'd been able to see that through. And the other large one is the building maintenance systems. Oh, no, that's not, no, that's one of the ones just moving it in between. So that's kind of it. Any questions, do you think, on the front page? Oh, I do want to make a correction too, but we're going to leave it here because it's been signed. The legal counsel, when I double checked it today, that's 4,000 high. The actual amount needed for legal was 20,241. So I think that covers the first page. Any questions?
Does anybody have any questions on that?
Thank you for sharing, Jennifer.
Okay. And then the second page, Linda, the supplemental?
Yeah, the second one, this is the one that came in. So that's, and as I said, it was after payroll was posted. This payroll, it was half a payroll, because what happens, there were 2 payrolls already in June, and then we have to pay that last week right up until June 30th. So we take that 2-week period of payroll and we have to allocate some to 24 and some to 25. So in the course of doing those postings, there were a couple of that did overrun at that point. This is where I want to point out for the highway is overrun by 14,000. That's just going to come between salary and expense too. And same thing with the building maintenance. So those are coming in between the budgets. One larger one, and again, there was very little notice. Then the police salaries is coming over, ran about 19,000 short, and just have not had the time to see what's what the cause of that is. Mike really wants time to take a look at it. This has come up kind of late, and it is only fair to give him the opportunity, but I certainly didn't want to leave him uncovered. So we have the funds in insurance that we can allocate over. If we don't need any portion of that, there's no problem at all in moving less than what's in here, but I didn't want to leave anything uncovered if we were aware of it. So.
And is our health insurance something that we pay out during the year from salary withholdings?
Yes.
So that's why we have a sort of
Yes, we pay it.
provident fund, if you will.
Yes, it comes from withholdings, a portion of it, and there's the town's portion of it too. So that's a very difficult one to predict. And Joan does a terrific job, and she was a little over this year, fortunately, so that allows us to tap into it for some of the other budgets. But really, on a $20 million budget, when we're moving, only like 150, 160,000 at the end of the year, that's pretty good, especially knowing that a couple of them really are just thrown in here for convenience, since we didn't have the paperwork for the reserve fund transfers.
So thanks to our department heads and everybody else involved in the budget process for managing it so well during the year. Anybody have any other questions for Linda about these transfers?
I move we accept them as presented.
Motion made by Jane. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Amy. Roll call vote, Jennifer?
Roll call vote. Phil,
Yes.
Parsons,
Yes.
Keegan,
Yes.
and Nevin Smith.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay,
Excellent.
and we're going to do this the old-fashioned way and get actual hard signatures on this.
All right.
And I will make a note that David Phil was in attendance and voted yes. So it's on the form, but I won't try and imitate your signature.
Okay, so next on the agenda, we have an appointment, but there's no time. So are we okay to just move into this or?
6:15 is the time. You're 4 minutes above schedule.
Oh, okay. All right, I didn't see the time. on it.
Sorry.
That's okay. So let's go to the consent agenda. Oh, so on this evening's consent agenda, we have approval of the minutes from March 11th, 2024, March 25th, May 2nd, May 15th, May 22nd, and June 5th. These are all calendar year 2024. We also have a temporary change of location for a Class 1 auto dealer's license that has been requested by Steve Lewis Subaru. sales department located at 299 Russell Street, with the service being located at 301 Russell Street. And this is being requested during the renovation of their existing site.
So moved.
Motion made by Amy to approve the consent agenda, second by Jane. Any further discussion? Being none, roll call vote, Jennifer?
Roll call vote, Phil,
Yes.
Parsons,
Yes.
Keegan,
Yes.
and Nevin Smith.
Yes,
Thank you.
Okay. So we got a few more minutes, so I'm just going to move to public comment. Is there anyone here this evening who would like to participate in public comment? You see anyone online, Jennifer?
I do not.
Okay. So I'll assume that there is no public comment. And let's see, so let's skip to old business 6.2. This is a second reading, if you will, of the select board liaison policy. So we discussed this at a previous meeting, and I'm hoping that we would like to see if there's approval this evening for this. Does anybody want to have further questions or further comments relative to the policy that Carolyn presented to us previously regarding the select board liaisons?
I think this is a really good, clear-cut message to hand to all the committees. And I move we accept.
Okay. Motion made by Jane. Is there a second for that?
I'll second it.
Okay. We have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any further discussion about this topic? No? Okay. So Jennifer, roll call vote?
Roll call vote, Phil,
Yes.
Parsons,
Yes.
Keegan,
Yes.
and Nevin Smith.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, pretty.
No, I'm good. I have originals. Thank you, though.
All right, 6:15. So we have a poll hearing. Eversource is requesting a stub poll on River Road, River Drive, right across from existing pole number 37/92. And they're looking to provide a new service to an existing customer. And we know that to be the North Hadley Sugar Shack.
Why are there 5 drawings of the same thing?
So it does not appear that there's anyone from Eversource here. So I'm gonna wing it. Because there's no one here from Eversource, right?
There's someone, Michael William.
Michael, are you from Eversource?
I am not, actually. I'm here on behalf of the DPW Director, Scott McCarthy. He has something further down in the agenda to discuss as far as the wastewater treatment plant. So we'll get into that a little later on. But no, I do not represent Eversource.
Do you want to?
My guess is it's a copy for each of you.
Ah.
I'm thinking,
Or sometimes they require,
yeah,
like,
a certain,
you need to send your request with 5 copies. Yeah, so.
I kept looking for differences, trying to see what they're trying to tell me that I missed.
I'm so sorry. When they give me a packet, I scan the whole packet in to make sure y'all have everything. Molly, it doesn't look like David has something.
Oh, okay. Again, I was just going to ask a quick question. If Riversource or Eversource is in good standing with the town at this time?
They were sending a check in to Jessica. I was not able to confirm with her. We were waiting for the mail. So I would ask that this is contingent upon receipt of that check.
David?
I believe there were some vegetation issues over there, meaning tree problems in the area that the pole is being proposed in. So I'm not sure if we want to check with Scott to see if anything needs to be done with the tree issues over there. I know they've been battling back and forth between, what's Eversource responsibility and what's the town's. So that may be something we want to check on.
So Scott McCarthy just happens to be right here.
Good evening. I looked at the pole location and I do have a little concern about some trees that are there. And I was hoping Eversource would be here so I could comment to them and they could have their arborist call me. I don't think that maybe we should maybe you should maybe hold off on issuing this until the arborist gets a hold of me and I can discuss particularly an oak tree that's there, because it's gonna have to have some work done to it. And I haven't heard from their arborist on this situation.
Is this causing any delays with the business at the Sugar Shack? If we delay it for another meeting, or do we know?
I do. They have concerns because I had already held this because of the non-payment for Eversource.
Right.
So I understand concerns, but I don't want to hold up a business any further. So perhaps
So if we can make it contingent.
contingent would be mine.
Well, I'm concerned if they don't show up at a hearing. I mean, I understand this is coming, they could all be busy. I would give them that grace period. But they might have notified us that they weren't going to be here since they knew it was on the agenda. And then we wouldn't have to postpone when there are questions.
Yeah, with all politeness, I'm not worried about Eversource.
Okay.
I'm more just concerned about if it's having a negative impact on
On the
one of our
business, yes.
businesses.
Absolutely.
And this is the holdup for, I think they're doing a barn of some sort or something connecting to some sort of barn is what they're doing. And there had been a holdup and I was able to get it cleared up with Eversource, connecting them with Jessica to get the payment made.
Mhm.
And they did, they said the check was in the mail. I would trust in that, I guess. But I would ask maybe if you made the vote contingent, so as soon as they talk to Scott and come up with the solution, and maybe Scott could, if it's not a solution, it could come back to y'all, but otherwise just maybe let it move forward.
David, you have your hand up again, or is that the same one?
No, it's a different hand, but I was just curious from Scott, does the tree need to come down where it's gonna be expensive that they're not gonna want to do it, or does it just need a little bit of work?
In my opinion, David, I would think that it would be in our best interest if the tree would be removed because the trees on the opposite side of their wires, and in any past experience, they don't like to do too much on the opposite side of the street. So when they prune that tree to get their stub pole in, then, what happens to that tree over time? Is it going to recover from that, et cetera, et cetera? I would recommend that the tree be removed, and I'm not sure if they're going to like that or not, because it's obviously an expense to them.
So I'd entertain a motion to approve the request for the addition of a stub pole contingent upon verification that Eversource is in good financial standing with the town of Hadley and subject to conditions that the DPW director may impose. And then we're meeting next week.
Okay.
So do you think that you could try to resolve it with them? But I know, again, it's summer and, vacations and everything.
Yeah, hopefully Jennifer has a contact for their engineering department. They call me because of their departments over there. They don't, work like you would think. Like the forestry department that I usually contend with doesn't really have anything to do with the construction aspect. So the construction department, I think, would have to talk to forestry, and they have some things on their end, but the forester knows my contact information, so that's not going to be a problem.
I'm
For
just thinking that
communication on
way,
that.
if you can't reach resolution
Yeah.
with them, then we could,
Yeah.
come back.
Just for clarification, for posting the hearing, are you keeping it open? If you're going to try to meet next week, you won't?
I think that we should keep it
Keep it
open,
Yeah.
Okay.
just for
Convenience.
and legality.
Okay, but still make a motion, but continue the hearing.
I think so. And you can continue it and just set a time for it.
Okay. So does anyone want to?
I'll make that motion that Molly so nicely outlined.
Is a second on David's motion?
Yes.
Okay, motion made by David, seconded by Jane. Jennifer, roll call vote.
Roll call vote, Phil,
Yes.
Parsons,
Yes.
Keegan,
Yes.
and Nevin Smith.
Yes.
Okay, and let it be known that we're continuing this poll hearing with Eversource to July 24th at 6 o'clock. 6:15?
6 o'clock is fine.
6
It's your
o'clock.
meeting.
Okay, next item on the agenda, we have the landfill solar project under old business. Carolyn, do you want to?
I would say I think David or Michael would be the best person to speak with.
Yeah. I'll let Michael take it if he's here. Yep, I see he's here, just because he has been involved in this throughout the process. But basically, this is the next step forward in the possibly long approval timeframe for getting solar on the landfill. So I'm not sure if he's. Hopefully, he's here.
Yep, Michael's
He's here.
online. Michael Doctor?
Oh,
I just sent him a quick text to say, "Hey, you're time in the spotlight." So hopefully, he,
Yeah. And if
oh,
not,
there he is.
there you are. Okay,
Sorry
good.
about that, guys. I'm on now.
So,
Hello?
Michael, we're just starting to talk about the landfill solar project, and David suggested you're the best person to kind of set the stage for the discussion.
Sure, let me just get a spot here where it's quiet.
Maybe if you go.
So, can you guys hear me okay?
Yep, yeah.
Okay. I believe at the last time this issue was before the select board, you guys approved a pre-application to Eversource to ascertain what would be required on behalf of the grid in order to accommodate a 2 megawatt system on the landfill. And so you guys approved that and the hiring of somebody to do that pre-application. Well, it turns out in the intermeeting over the last year, Eversource has eliminated the need for a pre-application requirement because they've put everything online and it's an actual application that gets done, which is a little bit more involved, a little bit more expensive. But that is the next step. The pre-application was done essentially for free, so we didn't spend that money and online, and it was determined, yes, in fact, we already knew that the grid would need significant upgrades in order to accommodate a project of this size, which was no surprise. But anyway, so then the next step would be to actually do an application with Eversource. And from that, they will determine what needs to happen to the grid. And the way that's done is you apply. There are several other large PV projects being proposed in Hadley. And that would be like a tranche of projects that are in line. Eversource will determine what's required for the grid in order to accommodate all those projects. And then they will then divide up those costs on a prorated basis based on the size of each of the large systems that are being proposed. So anyway, that's a little bit of background, and that was a mouthful. Maybe I should entertain questions and then go further. And so.
So the cost of the pre-application process is $12,000.
It's not pre-app anymore.
Well, the application process, yeah.
It's $12,750. The pre-application $750. The application is $7,500. And Solar Design Associates has estimated that has given a cost of an additional 4,500 to actually do the engineering for the application process submitted on the town's behalf. And so the whole thing, yes, costs 12,750.
And has there been discussion about where those funds would come from?
I'm gonna turn that over to somebody else who knows.
That's kind of why I was hoping that finance would be here so we could ask that question, but I don't know. Carolyn, what do you think? Is there?
I think we have to identify that. There, right now, we don't have that sitting somewhere. I think the other thing is, I think you as a board need to discuss it. And because to be putting that into it, I want to make sure that's the direction. It's like, I think you should actually do a vote to pursue this project. And then we can talk, but it may be special town meeting because we don't have that money identified. I don't know if there's any money in the green communities.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can't use it for this.
Okay.
purpose.
So we would have to look into that.
So.
I'm sorry,
I'm sorry.
I didn't hear what, I'm assuming that sounded like Jack Sikowski. Was that a possibility, green community expenditure?
No,
It's my understanding that we could not use the green communities money toward this particular application. It's used really for weatherization, things like that. And I know we already have the schools looking at weatherization and things like that, but I don't think you can slide this money into this particular funding.
excuse, I don't know how to put my hand up.
Yeah, so Jane
Kathy's also on
first
that.
and then,
No, Kathy, she's
Oh.
on green communities.
Oh, yeah, what Chris
Oh,
Mason has told us, is green communities money can't be used for any solar project. It's all building efficiency work.
Jane and then David?
Michael, so we're spending $12,000 for an application. What kind of savings is this ultimately going to have for the town? Just in ballpark.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a pro forma financial projection on this, and it's gonna generate over $2 million in savings and actual income for the town over the course of the life of the panels in a very conservatively written estimate. That, you know, as I've talked to David Phil a little bit about this, but there are a number of things that strongly favor the town in doing this, in terms of the incentives that are available. There are every watt that gets produced on a solar facility that is on a landfill gets an extra adder of a few pennies. And every watt that's generated to the benefit of a municipality, which because this electricity go toward the town's bills, gets another adder. The other thing that's changed substantially since the time that David Phil originally came up with this idea is that you can now receive a 30% tax credit as a municipality or as a nonprofit. That was not the situation then. So there's substantial economic advantages that the town has over other solar installers that are making good amounts of money right now on installing large solar systems. There's also the fact that the town has access to bond financing, so it would be able to finance this with more favorable terms than most private investors could hope to get. There's also REC income that would come, renewable energy certificate income that would come to the to this installation. That's not an advantage. Any system would have that, but anyway, there are specific significant advantages that accrue to this project that make it a good one, and one that can generate the town a substantial amount of income over time.
And the life of the panels, you referred to that, over the life of the panels, the town was going to have a certain number. What's that?
Well, most panels today are guaranteed for 25 years.
Thank you.
Dave,
I was just gonna ask Michael, what's according to the engineers that are helping, what's kind of the timeline for the process? Let's just say that, we had a pot of money and we filed this application tomorrow. What are we looking at for Eversource to say, here's what it's gonna cost you for the grid upgrades or infrastructure?
My understanding, and nobody knows what the speed of Eversource is, but it probably could be as long as a year before they actually got back to us with a firm idea of what what it's going to require to the grid to make this work. And then it's, and it could take another year or two after that to actually get the thing developed. So we're several years off. What this does is it gets us in the queue now, which is fairly important because incentives change and other projects, get in front of you. So it's, I was hoping that there would be, some way of finance that the town might be able to figure out a way of coming up with these funds, just because it's really going to be over time to the benefit of the town to get it going. So.
Question I have. I was just going to ask. So this is one potential solution, which I think is certainly an idea that has tremendous merit, for the reasons that you've articulated. There are other ways to approach this too. One other option is for the town to not be the builder of the solar, but actually engage in a contract with somebody where we're leasing. And I'm just wondering if we've explored all options, or is just this one that we've looked at, and should we do any more due diligence on looking at those other options before we go all in on this one?
Well, I think there's the important thing to think about is that, well, first, before I make one grandiose statement, I think it's important to notice that in the past, towns always used a partner developer to do these kinds of projects. And the reason for that was that you needed to have a for-profit partner entity that had a tax burden that could take advantage of the 30% tax credit. And so that always made sense to do that as a town. This is a very different situation we have since the Inflation Reduction Act was passed, where towns can now just do that and receive that $30,000 as a grant payment from the IRS within a year after the project is paid for. And so that's a substantial advantage. And absolutely, you could have a developer do it, but they're going to take all your profit as well.
Is the difference between a developer on a job like this and my renting my roof to somebody to put solar on it similar in the return that I would benefit?
Yeah, when you have somebody put solar on your roof and you just renting it basically, or doing what's called a power purchase agreement, you get your electricity at a fixed rate for a long period of time, and that's it. They make all the profit.
Yeah, you're getting maybe a tenth of the benefit that you could be by actually owning the panels. So I don't know. I mean, it's worth exploring all the other options, but I think long-term ownership of the project is going to be much more beneficial than leasing it or having somebody else do the development. I think part of the problem is we're kind of behind the eight ball. Amherst and just about every vacant or idle landfill in the state has had solar dropped on it in the past 10 years. So we kind of missed the boat on the biggest benefits.
Well, we missed the boat on being able to give the profit away to a developer.
Yeah, that's true.
That's time right now.
Yeah, but it would be nice to get it in the works, though.
So I mean, I don't know that we're in. I'm absolutely all for, doing anything that's going with the solar and that provides us with a benefit, especially the financial gain. But it seems like, we should probably have some sort of a more formal presentation analysis done before we go ahead trying to, and also give us time to try to find out where that $12,000 is going to come from. Does the finance committee want to do a reserve fund transfer this early in the year and fund it? Or is there somewhere else we might be able to get creative? Michael, you're throwing out numbers, so obviously this information exists somewhere. Is that something that could be presented to the full board or?
We've definitely circulated the 25-year financial pro forma to a number of select board members. I don't know if you've all seen it formally as a select board. I'm happy to send that along.
Yeah, I don't think it was ever on an actual agenda unless I
Okay.
missed. Right.
So Michael, I've
Yeah.
seen that form. Can you condense it and make it legible for most people?
Well, you can't, I mean, it's
I know.
a
Include
complicated
everything.
financial.
Give a cover.
I can highlight the highlights if you
Yeah.
like, but I
Yeah.
really don't think you can't simplify it too much. There's a lot.
All right, I agree with that, but to have to read it all without somebody being totally understanding of finance and solar and how they work, if you can highlight the things to look at, that would be really useful.
And
I-
also,
I'm happy to do that at your next meeting. I can come prepared with a PowerPoint if that's what you'd like.
sure,
I don't,
yeah, and then a sense of the project management too, because again, if the town is going to bear the burden, and the taxpayers agree that, we make the investment, so that's going to be, like you said, a borrowing. And then the project itself has to be managed, are we hiring an OPM? Like, how does that all work? Just giving us a sense of what this would look like.
are you asking about the development, managing the development of the project or managing the panels over time?
Well, both. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Right. So who,
Yeah.
there's the construction period and then there's the maintenance after that.
Yeah. I would definitely imagine that the town would hire a company that would do the entire installation and be responsible for that. The difference being that the town would own it, but that you would hire somebody to actually do the install. And you would bid that out, and the proposal would win. As far as ongoing maintenance, you already got a fence around it, so that's solar panel, there is money in the budget to pay for ongoing repairs. There's replacements of the inverters after 7 years, should they go down. So I can go over all of this in the pro forma, but I don't, solar PV is a fairly passive income source. If any of you have owned solar, that you don't do much except, the panels do most of the work for you. Once it's
So
installed properly.
Initially, we're looking at $12,000 to file the application. And then it may be a year or longer before we know if we're approved to do this and what it's going to actually cost us. Is that what I'm hearing?
The cost of the project is fairly well defined per and I can go over that with you with the financials on that. They include what it would cost to do the entire installation. What the unknown costs right now are the grid improvements, and I think we have over $1 million in the pro forma right now to cover possible grid improvements. They could be more, it could be less. But that exact figure would be determined through the Eversource review process. And I should also note, it's important to note here at this point that Eversource may decide that they need to do an actual study to determine what the costs are, they may determine that they're not capable of it at this point. And there will be a cost associated with that study, and that will be divided across all of the large installations that are waiting in the queue presumably Hadley would be one of those. And then that cost would get divided by all those projects. My sense is that once this thing gets going, we could easily, raise, there's grant money out there that want to see towns do this kind of work. And my sense is that we could, get that kind of study paid for with grant funds, and I'd be willing to help, locate those funds as well. And if I thought this 12,750 was going to be a big item, we might have been able to do some grant funding for that too, but it seems like it's up to depends what you guys determine here.
Can we have this on next week's agenda?
Yeah, I mean, whenever, is it okay, Michael, if we just work with you, when you feel that you're ready, we could do it as early as the 24th, or we could do it at the meeting after in August, just in
No,
terms of the presentation.
I'm out of town in August, so the 24th would be just fine. I'm happy to bring that in at that point. So.
Okay, and then I would encourage, any board members who have questions or anybody who has questions for that matter, if we can funnel those to Michael so his presentation, can be as complete as possible and you're as prepared as possible. That good? Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I may, Molly?
Yep.
I just want to repeat that the Inflation Reduction Act that was put into place a few years ago really changes the rules around solar. And this is a wonderful opportunity for cities and towns which couldn't take advantage of some of these tax benefits to take advantage. From an individual point of view, with the solar that I put on the house a couple of years ago, we go 1/3 back
Right.
the first year. A huge savings, and hopefully the town will be able to move on this and move this forward.
All right, is everybody comfortable with that? Okay. Well, thank you for taking the time tonight, Michael, and the rest of the climate committee as well, and David.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have 234 Middle Street, certificate of vote and acceptance of the deed. Carolyn, you want to just tee this up? Or?
My understanding is this is the last of the process before closing date will be agreed upon between the two attorneys. So we need an official certificate of vote for the purchase of the property and an acceptance of the deed.
Okay, so they're two separate motions.
Two separate.
correct?
Yeah.
You want them made separately?
The first one is I need it read verbatim. Okay. And the second one, you can sort of wing it.
So I hereby move that the select board acquire by purchase for general municipal purposes, the property known as 234 Middle Street in Hadley, approximately 1.26 acres, more particularly described in a deed in the Hampshire County Registry of Deeds in Book 1505, page 179, for the purchase price of $325,000 as authorized pursuant to Article 16 of the annual town meeting of May 2nd, 2024, and further to authorize Chair Molly Keegan to execute and enter into any and all documents necessary to effectuate the acquisition of said property.
Second.
Motion made by Amy, second by Jane. Jennifer, roll call vote.
Roll call vote, Phil,
Yes.
Parsons,
Yes.
Keegan,
Yes.
and Nevin Smith.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, and then I believe we're looking for an acceptance of deed motion as well.
I move that we accept the deed.
Do you want us to read that one?
It's there, that one's just,
It's okay just to do the motion to accept the deed. You could say for the Article 16.
okay, so I would like to make a motion to accept the deed pursuant to Article 16 of the annual town meeting of May 2nd, 2024.
For the property at 234 Middle Street.
For the property at 234 Middle Street.
Motion made by Amy,
Second.
second by Jane. Roll call vote.
Roll call vote, Phil,
Yes.
Parsons,
Yes.
Keegan,
Yes.
and Nevin Smith.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, old business item 6.4.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
can I ask you to table that item? I realized that the attachment is not there, showing you which ones are released. So could you table that to the 24th? I've left it off.
Okay, we'll pass over 6.4 and we will take that up on July 24th.
Thank you.
All right. New business 7.1. Board and committees. These are additional appointments subsequent to that have come up since our last discussion of this topic. So the following people are requesting appointment to the corresponding committees. We have Elizabeth Rotuno for the Cultural Council. That's a 5-year term. Ellen Miller-Mack, Cultural Council, 5-year term. And Catherine Kentfield for the Cemetery Committee for a 3-year term. And Irene Costello, Historic Commission for a 3-year term.
Ellen Miller-Mack and Elizabeth, Ellen Miller-Mack is here in person, and Elizabeth Rotuno is on Zoom. Any questions you might have?
Okay, great. Is there anything that you wanted to say?
Well, I just would very much like to serve on the cultural council. I'm very engaged with music and poetry and visual arts. And I would love to serve the town in this way. Very excited about the possibility.
Thank you. And Elizabeth, how about you? Is there anything that you wanted to share?
Yes, hello. So, hi. So I would really like to be on the Cultural Council because I have personally benefited so much from Hadley's artistic and cultural initiatives. I've been involved with various Hadley area artistic initiatives for many years. For example, Lynn Bowmaster, who's currently on the Cultural Council, I've been in her writing workshop for 6 years. I have been a member of the Hopkins Academy Drama Club for 3-odd years, and I was recently a leading member of our play, which was Clue on Stage. And so I've just been so honored to be able to be a part of various local and, regional activities, cultural and artistic, and I would really like to give back to the community in some way and provide the perspective of a youth member, someone who could, become a part of the community and sort of encourage other youths to get interested in culture and arts and continue the tradition, or not really the tradition, but sort of continue caring for the arts and the development of culture in Hadley.
Okay, great. So would anybody like to make a motion?
Motion to accept all 4 or appoint all 4, excuse me.
Okay, motion made by Jane. Is there a second?
Second that.
Okay, second by Amy. Jennifer, roll call vote.
Roll call vote. Phil,
Yes.
Parsons,
Yes.
Keegan,
Yes.
and Nevin Smith.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for coming. And Elizabeth, welcome to the committee as well.
Thank you.
Stay dry getting home. Stay dry getting home.
Oh, yeah, well, slow down.
Okay, new business item 7.2. I believe Bill Dwyer is here from the planning board. Yes, he is. Regarding a request for support from the select board for a 40R district grant that the planning board voted to pursue last evening. Bill?
Yeah, good evening. I'll try to keep this out of the weeds of zoning. But at the end of last year, the planning board decided to pursue a grant to explore what's called a 40R smart zoning district. We received the grant in the amount of $7,500. We did create a subcommittee that is actively looking at this. In a nutshell, 40R gives you an option to increase zoning density in certain areas where it's appropriate. We're still working on defining, or the committee is working on defining those areas. But the snag we've come up with is that the grant that we have for the project is not quite enough to get us over the hump to a end product draft zoning bylaw that we can bring to town meeting at some point in the future. Pioneer Valley Planning Commission provided us with the first grant. They have identified a source of funding for further grants from the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs. And what we are asking is for a vote of the select board to submit the application, which Pioneer Valley Planning Commission is preparing. There is no direct cost to the town. The particular grant we're applying for does have a copay, but the grant funding that we have already received can be applied towards that. So again, there's no direct cost to the town for seeking this additional money, and it will enable us to put together a product, and we'll see what it comes out as. We're not judging it one way or the other, but we're studying it, and it's an option, and we'd appreciate your support to apply for this grant.
Does anyone have any questions for Bill?
Seems a reasonable thing to do. I move we let the planning board apply for the grant. We apply for the grant. Who does that?
It's actually, I think what we're looking to do is to provide a letter of support.
All right. Whatever is needed.
If I could, technically, this particular grant you are applying for, or the town is applying for, it is not the planning board that's applying for it.
Okay.
The Pioneer Valley Planning Commission has provided a sample letter of support, and I have provided you with the letters of support that the planning board and the Affordable Housing Trust Fund voted on last night. But technically, you're going to apply for it, so you basically just need a motion to apply for the grant.
Okay, so Jane's motion is correct then. So Jane made a motion that we pursue a grant application as presented this evening. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Amy, motion made by Jane, second by Amy. Jennifer, roll call vote.
Roll call vote. Phil,
Yes.
Parsons,
Yes.
Keegan,
Yes.
and Nevin Smith.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Good luck. All right, agenda item 7.3 is a request for the appointment of a new position, which would be a combined position of assistant treasurer and permitting coordinator.
Let me start, or do you want to? Yep. So, well, I just want to talk of what got us here, and then if they have questions for you guys. All right. Sure.
Come on up.
So as you know, our treasurer has been without consistent support for quite a while, several months. I'm not even sure how far back, but it's been for quite almost a year.
Since last October.
Yeah, yeah. And so we've had different people hired that have gone on to different jobs. And we did use a temp agency for a while, but Linda definitely needs some more support in there with her. And so what was really the best option was, if you remember, Dee Dee as her role in at the same time as permitting coordinator, you were the assistant treasurer.
So actually,
Yeah,
this year, this week is 9 years that I've been working with the town. So I originally started off as in the building department, 25 hours a week, and I was 10 hours a week assistant accountant.
Right.
And then Gail, our accountant, did leave. And so then we got to Bay State Municipal Accounting. And in the meantime, as I was working underneath them, he started bringing in one of his girls. And so they decided to move me to assistant treasurer. COVID hit, and then it was very difficult for Linda and I to remotely work and deal with that. In the meantime, the building department, Tom became the building commissioner then, and we got the new permitting program. And then that became full-time because we didn't think we were going to get busy, but we got extremely busy during COVID. So But now that I've gotten things under control with our new permitting program, and also just because of, with the wage study, and I feel I'm not going to progress any really farther, even though I love my job with the building department. But I decided that, you know, maybe moving on to going back to helping Linda and be her assistant. And in the meantime, just, you know, work between the two of them for now and see how that works. And then eventually progressively go to, you know, a full-time.
See where it goes, yeah.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions for Carolyn, Linda, or Dee Dee?
Yeah. No, really, we're excited about this.
And
So
is this, when will this happen?
tomorrow.
Well, so I'll clarify because there's
Okay,
some
yeah.
additional things that we still have to do. We still need to look at it. I know that we're going to get together to look at the point scoring factors that we've used for, not we, but you and the compensation study has used for all of those, and to be able to decide what the wage should be. I did present that to the union attorney and business manager. And in the meantime, we knew we had to wait and get some of those things worked out. But in the meantime, I did ask the attorney for the union if we could do this immediately. And we'll have to work out some of those details. But if immediately Dee Dee could start to share some hours to help Linda in the long run. So it's going to be kind of a transition. So, but that's where we're at right now. And the union attorney and business manager have given us the go ahead to do that.
And so the only question I think I have, Dee Dee, is the building inspections office, for those who remain behind when you're not there, are they going to be okay?
That's the hard part. Because I did do many other things, and that's what made it hard, especially with wage study, because there's unfortunately not other towns that I can compare to as far as what I do. The good thing with, as I had told Carolyn and Linda though too, is that I am always here. I've always helped out. I've been a part of Conservation, Board of Health. And you know, when people come in and Board of Health isn't there, I can find things for them. So I would be helping to train a person to come in to help mostly, you know, with the permitting and everything else. And, but I will always be there. So it's not like, you know, somebody would just be stuck in there and learning from on their own, so.
Yeah, we see this as in phases, and I think we'll have a very cooperative relationship between the two offices. That we'll see how it works half-time in my office. We'll see how it works half-time there. And
this is supported by the inspections department there.
He actually suggested it too, so.
So my question is, just assume in the morning you're in inspections and in the afternoon you're in the treasurer's office.
Yeah.
And there you are working happily with Linda on something and a crisis occurs and they need you from downstairs. Do you say, see you in the morning?
No, well, I've always, and, you know, to an extent, like when I worked with Linda before, we always had a thing where if we were more, you know, busy in the building department, there were certain days that I gave more time to, and it was the same for her.
You just balanced it.
We balanced it, yes, and we always had a good communication together before, so.
And I would think in that situation, I mean, that's really for something for Linda and Tommy to work out.
Yes,
Right.
exactly.
we see this as an advantage for the town.
Yeah.
Not
Yes,
that,
that's
and I think that we have talked within town hall about having a bit more of cross coverage than we
Cross,
already
yeah.
have. This is pretty extreme cross coverage at this level, but I think that's important, and I will have busy times as well. And that we will do, you know, we'll do as formal tracking as we need to. I would think in the short run, it's, you know, we'd be just trading off half days here and there if necessary, but if it gets confusing, we'll have to step it up. And we'll
Yeah,
see
now
how
that we
it
have an
goes.
assistant, local inspector, he's also learning the program a bit too. So,
Ernest, yeah.
the part-time local inspector. So between him, and then we have Terry in there. But like I said, if there was ever something that they needed or the new person, by all means, I'd be more than happy to get them out of that quick little bind or whatever. So, I mean, that's.
I move we accept this new position.
Motion made. Is there a second on the
I'll
motion?
second that.
Okay, motion made by Jane, second by Amy. Any further discussion or questions? No? Okay, Jennifer, roll call vote.
Roll call. Phil,
Yes.
Parsons,
Yes.
Keegan.
Yep.
And Nevin Smith.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, welcome to split shift.
Again.
So the second part of it would be an actual appointment of her as assistant treasurer. Are you prepared to do that tonight, or do we want to take this in steps?
Well,
Because it's a
can we-
position.
Yeah, can we make the appointment subject to, as Carolyn said, there are a couple of, do we need to have the side letter?
Yeah.
Right?
For the permanent one, I think, yeah, you should
Yeah.
have a side.
Or you can revisit it next week if that's what, but I'm ready. but
I
don't
think
know.
we can do it contingent upon, is that?
Yeah,
You're
and
Yeah.
the fact that I got the go-ahead, and Kate's aware of it, I think we can start moving forward to make,
Good, that'd be great, because then we can get her bonded and I can register for her for treasurer training, which actually happens in August. So there is an advantage to us having her officially on board as an assistant as opposed to just someone working in my office.
Okay. Well, so I'll make a motion then that we appoint Dee Dee DeBrinzi as the assistant treasurer, subject to receipt of an agreed upon, or an approved side agreement with the union.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Molly, second by Amy. Roll call vote.
Roll call vote. Phil,
Yes.
Parsons,
Yes.
Keegan.
Yes.
And Nevin Smith.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Lots of extra steps on those stairs.
Scott McCarthy, item 7.4. Our DPW director is requesting to contract with, is it Viola? Is that how they pronounce it?
Yeah, Viola, yeah.
Viola, to fill a long-term vacancy that the town has been experiencing for a wastewater operator.
So a couple of years ago, when we had some staffing issues in the wastewater treatment plant, myself, Carolyn and Jen Travato, we went to their office. They're located in the Hoyoke wastewater plant. They run that operation right now. So we went there and met with some of their folks and touched on our options for, support staff, operational things and et cetera. And they sent us some information on it, some pricing, et cetera. And it kind of went cold on our end because we had some people that moved up and we had some staffing in the wastewater plant. So we were kind of meeting our discharge permit requirements. But in the recent month and a half, we've had a vacancy there and we have not received a qualified applicant for this position. So with that being said, we're kind of on, teetering on a potential violation of our discharge permit for staffing reasons. So right now, currently, there's a chief operator. We don't have an assistant chief operator. We're supposed to have one. The DEP gave us a little bit of leniency on that to try to get, somebody to fill that because we had all new people at the time. So they let us go with the chief operator and two operators and the consultant, which is Dennis. So we were getting by on that. But just recently, we've been really struggling there for staff. With small department, it's got to be manned 7 days a week, et cetera, et cetera. And we're just, really struggling, trying to find answers. We don't have them. We can't get an applicant. the potential of the violation to our discharge permit. There's a lot of things that go along with this, and I have been talking to Carolyn about it, and just, we're running out of options fast. So, contracting out an operator at this point may be our only option. And some news today, a little bit, we may need two.
So would this be kind of a month-to-month sort of thing, so that would we continue to look for somebody, or would we make a commitment for a specified time frame to Viola, or?
There is some contract agreements with them for designated time
I
frame.
think the first one looked like 6 months.
So is that Michael?
Yes,
Yeah.
Michael's here.
So,
from-
yeah, before to bring it to Michael's, this is really a conversation to get it started. And I think Viola's also going to be here. Are we going to do it next week, or?
Well, it depends
for
on
a
what the
formal-
board.
A more formal
want.
presentation to see the pros and cons. So, but Michael's here.
So Michael Williams is on the call from Viola to answer any potential questions. And this was kind of last minute on our end. And if you would like, he would prepare a real presentation for you for your next meeting, if that's something you'd want, with more, answers to the questions you have, contract reasons, rates, et cetera, duties and all that stuff. We sent them our discharge permit and staffing plan for them to review. So they have a little more documentation on our end of what they need to potentially supply to us for keeping us in compliance. The options are kind of, let Michael speak to this too. We can go very small or very big with them. It's a worldwide company, so they run treatment plants, full circle. They help where needed. There's a lot of things to think about here and talk about, and obviously expense is, the key.
Yeah, I think there are a couple of things that, I'd like to hear directly from Michael, but one thing I just want to say is this is not the first time the town has been in a position where we needed to contract with a third party. This happened several years ago in the DPW. I believe I thought at the time it was the water department, not the sewer, but at any rate, so this isn't something that's brand new to the town. So I guess the question I have for you, Michael, if you could just give us a general sense of, I know Scott's saying, you're a worldwide company, but maybe some other municipalities you work with, and what capacity, training, competence of your staff, all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. I'd like to thank the board for and Scott for inviting us here today. I know we've been talking about this on and off for a little over a year now, and so just a little bit about myself. I am local. I am I live in Chicopee, and I operate the Holyoke wastewater treatment plant. And actually recently just been promoted to a regional role. So I'll be supporting, Hadley, Holyoke, and many other municipalities such as Charlton and Springfield, Ludlow, and Agawam. So these roles here in our community, and in just very local communities here as well. The company is a very large company, that is, as Scott mentioned, it's global. There's 220,000 employees worldwide, with a lot of support functions that come with Veolia. We offer a lot of different options and opportunities to communities like yourself. Staffing is not a new concern of a community. It's an ongoing concern. More recently, one of the member associations related to water and wastewater, NUIA is the acronym for it, and they have identified that approximately 40% of all licensed operators in the state of Massachusetts are greater than 60 years old. So they've nicknamed it as the silver tsunami. I think everyone here is familiar with stuff of that nature, as we're seeing the workforce not being replenished. So Veolia has come forth, and with our size, we have the opportunity and availability to promote and train from within, and that would allow the flexibility here for the Hadley staff or the town of Hadley. For instance, we would potentially be able to, if this was a 6-month agreement or a longer term agreement, we could move somebody rarely out of another facility, giving them the opportunity to experience some management roles with support from the leadership teams as well. And then also, if it was a long-term agreement, we'd be able to relocate this individual potentially. We have identified a couple of individuals for this role already, and not fully embrace we're not putting the cart before the horse here, but just making the team recognizing and understanding that there's opportunities for the town of Hadley, and some of them are pretty excited about that.
So this quote is from over a year ago. Has the hourly wage changed since then?
Yes, so the hourly wage, Scott, as mentioned, this was kind of last minute thrown together, and I apologize I wasn't able to get that updated in time for today's meeting, but the rate would adjust by the CPI factor for Hadley using the goods and services line code. So I don't have that number off the top of my head, and I apologize. I should have been more prepared for this, but again, as Scott mentioned, this was relatively last minute. And the new information that was shared this evening, and this potential for a second candidate or operator.
And are we looking at full-time?
Yeah, so our permit says, I know Peter Cluff is here too, he knows more of the fine print of our permit. Our plant calls for 2.5 operators a day, licensed operators, and 6 hours of licensed operators on the weekend. So depending on what those hours are, yeah, it is definitely somebody full-time for sure. And whatever happens, with anyone else, it could be, potentially 2 operators. Because as far as like the staffing goes, our hands are kind of tied. This is set regulations by the DEP. They dictate to us what we need for staffing, and we stumbled across some documents from the past that looks like they may have wanted 4 people back years ago, and the town kind of fought that off a little bit. But yeah, it's.
So looking at how much per hour this is versus how much if we were ever able to get somebody, like where would this money be coming from? That's like, this is 4 times what an operator makes.
Yeah, I mean, there's the hourly rate of the operator, but right now we'd be bearing the payroll burden, or excuse me, the benefits burden as well.
Okay.
So, there's some factor on that. I think Joan was taking a look at some numbers. So, that could be another 35 to 40% on top of their base. But even with that added in, you're right. I mean, it's still certainly more expensive than an individual. So do you have the ability to absorb this in your budget? I think it's.
Yeah.
No, we can't. Our budget for the sewer department is bare bones. There's other issues in the sewer department budget as far as the sludge hauling is a major problem for us. It was a major overage in the last year's budget because the price just continuously goes up and up and up. So it can't be absorbed in our budget. We don't. It's a rate thing. It would probably have to be, if this is something the board wanted to entertain, we'd have to probably look at the rates and create revenue to support it.
And if we don't do it, we're putting ourselves at risk with the DEP, which is probably a lot more costly than what we're talking about.
Probably. And then everything else they implement on you to do along with your staffing, the list could go on and on and on.
David?
Scott, this is just for meeting our permit requirements, correct? There's no plans to eliminate town employee staff positions, is there?
No, David, at this time, there is not. We're just looking for staffing right now to, come in and help us meet our requirement for the discharge permit, but it is an option with them. They do in other communities, like they take over the whole operation, but we really didn't talk about that.
Yeah, and if I just, well, I'm sorry, Michael, did you want to say something? Go ahead.
I just want to touch on that for a moment. And by no means do we have intentions as Veolia as a company to ever eliminate a town employee's job. As just mentioned, Veolia has many business models and opportunities here. It's almost carte blanche for the town to determine what best fits the town. So there's opportunities here if the town wanted to move forward with a full operation type role of contracting and privatization. But any of the staff members in all of our contracts that we operate, and we operate over 80 contracts here in the New England area with many municipalities and entities. So we always hire on the full staff. So by no means, I want to make that very clear that, we would be hiring, I've met Peter personally. He actually toured our facility and he's a very talented individual. And if the town wanted to proceed with any type of privatization, we'd be happy to have him on our team if that was the avenue taken.
I'd like to add to that, Peter has been a very dedicated employee to us through this problem. He has done a tremendous job figuring out how to navigate this with very limited staff.
And Molly, if I can just add a perspective I have from starting here, not even being in the details of a wastewater treatment plant, and then going to visit to see how, we've been pronouncing it wrong. I say Viola. Is it Viola, right, Michael? Viola?
Viola, it's close enough. You're good.
To see the level of expertise there, and in my opinion, Scott and I talk about it often, it's a public safety issue. And I know there is going to be an additional cost. Molly has mentioned the savings we would have in benefits, healthcare, all of that, we would not be owning that. So, but I truly have just seen in being able to work and observe with them it is a public safety. If you don't have the qualified person overseeing these things, it is critical. It's not something that we can take lightly or just puts an unskilled person in there who doesn't have the skills, the initiative, the expertise. It's a critical part of public service, in my opinion.
But it sounds to me like we need to do something now. Which sounds like we need to get outside help because you've tried to hire locally and not found appropriate candidates. Is that correct?
Correct.
So I think we should really seriously pursue this.
Yeah, and I think I think you offered when you were talking, Scott, that the next logical step would be if the select board thinks this is a good idea to move forward, that we would bring Michael back. We would have an updated agreement in front of us with all of the terms. Just looking through it, there are a lot of insurance requirements and the like. I would imagine our risk manager wants to take a look at that and make sure, again, if there are any gaps or things that we need to add on to this, that all the costs are known here.
Yeah,
Is that the next step?
I definitely, and I think it's Linda and I need the opportunity and Scott to get together and look at the cost, the impact, and what our options are moving forward.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the board on this?
I would like to.
I'm sorry, Michael, you have your hand up again?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention here that, as we move forward with this and we're looking at hiring staff, whether it's Veolia for a long-term agreement or short-term, we do have a partnership with Nick Tooker of the UMass campus, who does wastewater. So we could also, as we're in here operating and helping out, we could continue to work with UMass and help. Maybe there is somebody locally that doesn't know this job exists or, isn't aware, and we could try to work with them as well to get them trained through some of the other programs, not just UMass, but also through Veolia as well.
David?
So it sounds like at least one position though is, I would say, somewhat urgent because of the fact of the DEP permitting requirements. Scott, are we okay waiting a week or two while we get the rest of the information? I know, possibly a second position, but is this something you need now so we don't get in trouble?
Well, right now, we are in compliance, barely, between, Peter, the one of the other operators, and Dennis working for us, at part-time, but yeah, I mean, I think we'd be all right till, a couple of weeks or whatever, but just, this isn't going very good for us. And like Jane said, we need to do something with this, unfortunately, relatively fast. We're on the brink of disaster.
Let's get it on next week's agenda.
So Jane has just suggested that we have it on next week's agenda with as much updated information as possible. And I would think that we'd be in a position to take a vote then. Again, if anybody has any other questions come up, we should make sure they get to Carolyn and Scott, so we can be in a position to move next Wednesday. Is that good with everybody?
That's fine.
Okay. Is that good with you, Michael?
Yeah, absolutely. The only thing I ask is the board okay with me sending out maybe a Google questionnaire type document? This has been very, high level, and I just want to understand all of the opportunities. I don't want to come into the meeting next week and present irrelevant material. So I just want to, if that's okay with you all, that I can email and maybe just so I could tailor, 5 or 6 slides towards the needs of the community, and just understanding that, this is today's need, but understanding the scope of services that are offered by Veolia, such as street sweeping or industrial pretreatment management. We do some collection work, we do pump stations. So again, I just want to understand what the full scope is. And, I know the labor is the today's task, but I want to be prepared and make sure that you guys have the information necessary to make a educated decision.
I think Scott needs to answer that.
I was just gonna say, I would imagine that's really Scott and Carolyn,
That's Scott and
from
Carolyn,
procurement
yeah.
standpoint and,
Right.
right.
Yeah, and because there's certainly things that we saw that were definitely, like when he said it, the scale goes from here to
Right, we
here.
don't need the street
Well, I
sweeping.
do want you to have a summary, because looking down the road, if we're gonna look down the road and see where we're going, I do think that's important, just when we had talked about capital issues and the complete.
Yep.
Going down the road, we need to hire somebody for Scott soon.
Yeah, so.
Then we can go a little further down the road.
Like
Just
right
wanted to-
now, it'd be just like we would need a general, wastewater treatment plant operator, laboratory, and and pump station aspect
Okay.
for immediate.
Right,
let's-
and then we have a little bit of time to talk about
What's
whether we need
next?
a
Yeah.
longer term solution.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll have that on the agenda for the 24th. That's short agenda. We didn't have much on it.
You're filling it up.
Yeah.
Yes, I knew it, I knew it.
Okay, thanks for your time, Michael.
Thank you all. Have a great evening.
All right, see you next week.
And thank you for driving back in the rainstorm, Scott.
I get another one.
Next agenda item is also Scott, 7.5 roadside vegetation management.
So recently I had a few calls from people, residents about, particularly where the guardrail areas are in Hadley and et cetera, about poison ivy and invasive species and of plants growing in those areas. And it's starting to take over. And so normally like we'll go out with the roadside mow, and then a crew will double back and string trim you know, in between the guardrails and try to keep everything at bay. But it seems in the last couple of years with the amount of precipitation, the heat, et cetera, a lot of this vegetation is really starting to explode and we're having trouble keeping up with it. And another problem we're having now is employees getting, you know, covered in poison ivy and getting, you know, having problems with that, workman's comp issues, et cetera, loss of work because the people are injured or with poison ivy. And with all that being said, I know years ago, the town used to have a vegetation management plan. I think they did it themselves, and permitting and things like that have changed and they got away from it. But I think it's time that we should look at that again and have a vegetation management plan for those areas. I contacted a company out of Athol. It's called Vegetation Control, and they work for a lot of communities doing this. They come up with your vegetation management plan. They file all your permitting with the DEP. The initial is obviously more work, and then every year they need to just update it. And this is for a 5-year initial plan. And then you can hire them to come out and treat those areas and spray what they need to spray of a herbicide, and pre-emergence depends on what they're treating. Obviously, there's a cost involved with this. The initial design is $5,000, and then probably $1,000 a year to keep the permit going. And yeah, currently they get $3,200 a day to spray. From a phone conversation with them, seems like they could probably do our town in 2 to 3 nights. Most of this work is done at nighttime when there's no one around. But, you know, with that being said, the cost aspect, you know, when the DPW guys are out weed whacking guardrails and trying to keep all that at bay, we're not filling potholes and doing other work that we kind of put off. So, and then, you know, obviously the weed whacking aspect, you know, there's fuel costs in that material, you know, string and poison ivy stuff. And then when somebody gets a poison ivy infection, then, you know, workman's comp thing comes into play. So I'm not sure how that all balances is out, but I just was curious on what you thought of that.
Well, they're charging $3,000, you said, a day?
Yeah.
Something like that?
Yeah.
And it takes them 2 to 3 days. That's
Yeah.
$9,000 of treatment, but
Yeah.
they don't treat it just once, right?
Well, it depends on the situation. So they'll do an initial treatment probably for the year, you know, depending. It's all depending on how thick and vegetated, et cetera. There's a lot of variables in this, but obviously as you go on, things get easier to control and do. So say like the first year it took them, you know, the initial time was three days. Well, the following year they could come back and do this in 1 day because, you know, things are starting to die off and it's easier to control.
So we've always, as far as I'm aware, had an understaffed DPW. And it's just now with all the legal ramifications, it's starting to come back and really say to us, this is a problem. And I think we need to support Scott in resolving this problem. And if people are going out for 3 or 4 days and he's already down people, but they can't work because of serious poison ivy, which can be really serious. I'm speaking.
There's a couple of guys that just, they can't do it, period. They're so allergic to it that they just,
Yeah, and it
no
gets
matter
worse.
what
Once you've
extent
had
of
it,
PPE we
builds.
give them, it doesn't matter.
Can
So-
are there other options in terms of like landscaping companies or other?
I think there is, but this company specifically deals with municipality and the proper permitting, et cetera, because we're not exempt from any kind of permitting with the DEP, like, some landscape companies and stuff, obviously can come out and spray, but all this needs to be permitted first. And these folks have, equipment for roadside spraying where, like a landscaper might just come with a backpack sprayer or something and spray. They have more like automated equipment and stuff set up for roadside spraying. That's why they can cover so much area in a short amount of time.
Is this something that's dire for now, or you just want to plant the seed?
Well, if we planted the seed, they wouldn't be able to do anything probably this year anyway, because the permitting process and the stuff with the state obviously takes time. So potentially would be, if we planted the seed now, we'd be able to go and start this next year.
If we have the money for it.
If we had the money for it. The money aspect, I do have a vegetation, tree management line item, which that's where I would take this money from, but then that would, we would do less pruning and tree removal and whatever. We'd have to move some money from the regular tree work to this.
Yeah, and I thought we were already concerned about the lack of funds for the tree.
Oh, we are, but I mean, this is gonna come to a point where if we, we might have to stop doing it because it's getting so bad. I mean, if the employees are in danger and we can't protect them, I mean, that's a problem for us. We have to protect our employees.
Yeah, of course.
Absolutely.
How many days does it take your guys to make the rounds on string trimming, everything that needs to be string trimmed in town after you do use the roadside mower?
Consistently, David, like if we worked on it nonstop, I bet you it would probably take 3 to 4 weeks. There's some time involved with that to, all of Route 47, there's some pretty long stretches of road here that we have to do this on. So it's a timely thing. In some of the areas we try to do twice a year,
Is that 3 or 4 weeks for one person or for two? Or
our crew, like
your
they
whole
go
crew?
out,
Everybody.
as a crew of, 4 or 5 guys that do this. So it definitely costs us some labor doing this.
Well, just on that alone, I would support at least planting the seed and seeing where we can go, because I had no idea it took that long to weed whack, and that's crazy to have all those guys out there when they could be doing other things. So
It's 3 people months. Yeah.
All right, so maybe if you want to put some sort of a proposal together, because I'm sure, another thing that will come up is the nature of the treatments and if, what the options are there.
Yeah, and I plan on doing that, but I just wanted to talk to the board first before I put too much effort and time into this, because obviously, residents hear herbicide may or may not entertain that. So I just wanted a blessing from the board, I guess, first, before I went any further.
Yeah, and I think that's, again, that'll be more information to have, so we can.
Yeah, it sounds like, get together what it would take you to get a proposal from this company. What it would cost the town.
And once again, too, like some communities, they just do permitting for, they have people that have, spray licenses that people can spray themselves and things like that. Unfortunately, we don't have that.
Mhm.
So that's where, them applicating for us comes into play.
Okay. Sue, looks like you want to ask a question or say something?
Yeah, you may want to consider the cost of workers' comp as well. We've finally gotten our losses in workers' comp to the point where our experience modifier is under 1.0, where it used to be like, 1.2, which was significant. And the DIA assessment or their surcharge was high as well. We're now in a respectable area for our workers' comp experience. DIA looks at every loss, and that's how they surcharge you, regardless of how much the loss is. And then the experience modification factor is based on the lost days and medicals. So I think there's that consideration as well.
Yep. Yeah, cost avoidance for
Exactly.
experience, yeah.
Right, it's good we have our rates that low. I remember that.
Yeah. Okay, so it sounds like
I'll get you some more information. and-
maybe you're okay with them pursuing that too?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks for bringing it up.
Yep.
Okay, item 7.6, departmental fee increases for the building inspections and the fire department. You going in serial order? Okay. Building inspections, it is.
This is combined, the first one.
Oh, okay, right.
So
Yeah.
So basically, our annual report applications, annual inspection applications go out to the businesses, and it includes the fee and right now, the $50 late fee, which was approved years ago. So we're asking, we have a few handful of franchises that, not being fair, that don't pay before or in a reasonable time. So we were asking to add the additional $100 late fee, after unpaid after 90 days, to just add to our letter and our fee schedule.
So are you making a profit off of this or is this?
Well, we're actually trying to prevent a loss, because if we're waiting for 2 years to get, this should hopefully curtail that and have them. get their act together.
Question.
Right, because if they don't pay, you don't inspect. And if you don't inspect, you could have a problem.
Right.
Got it.
We have a few that it goes 3 years sometimes, and I think this will help to stop that.
And if they don't pay, can they get shut down? I mean, what is the long-term penalty for them not paying, other than they don't get inspected? Could the Board of Health shut them down or something?
Yeah, I mean, we had conversations about Board of Health, common victualers being held up as part of that as well. So there's other options, but like I said, we're looking at 90 days rather than waiting for the year.
Right.
So if they see they're going to be paying all these additional fees, then we would hope we wouldn't have to go down that route, because then we're messing up meals tax for the town or whatever.
Agreed, but I think that, idle threats for people who don't listen are just idle threats, and we need to get some meat in it somewhere. And if the money isn't gonna be it, then going out of business because your doors are closed.
Yep.
Might be the second follow-up of the $100.
And we did have a conversation with Ben from the Board of Health about this, and we brought up with Jennifer, so she's aware.
Does anybody have voiced any objections to this?
I think it's a good plan. I move we accept this change.
I'll second that. Motion made by Jane, second by Amy. Any further discussion on the topic? Roll call vote?
Roll call vote. Phil,
Yes.
Parsons,
Yes.
Keegan,
Yes.
and Nevin Smith.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Early in-person voting, Board of Registrar.
Wait, there's one more read underneath it. There's the second
I
part.
did, I skipped over. I'm sorry, there's a second part. The permit link fee increase, my apologies.
No worries. Basically, 4 years ago, we started the program. Jennifer and I tried to look back for the minutes in that to see, the board approved that the $10 fee, be charged. It was a minimum of 75 per permit. It went on $10 additionally to every permit. They have decided to go up 20% on us, and so it's additional $2. And we couldn't find how it was approved, and just the right thing to do would be ask you if that could be added, the additional $2 to the permit, as opposed to coming from the revenue, coming from the revenue, the building department, or what's given to the town.
So it's a pass through of a cost increase that you're bearing.
To the public, to the applicants.
Makes sense to me. because we don't have money to pay it. I move we accept.
Second, motion made by Jane, seconded by Amy. Roll call vote?
Roll call vote, Phil,
Yes.
Parsons,
Yes.
Keegan,
Yes.
and Nevin Smith.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And instead of saying 25%, just $2. It's like so much nicer.
Yeah, they might think it's gonna be the whole fee.
Okay, item 7.7, early in-person voting, Board of Registrars recommendation. Is there anybody, Jessica or anybody gonna?
Sure. This is a request that came from Jessica. This is for the early in-person voting. She's made a request for the hours September 3rd for in-person weekend voting for September 3rd. And on September 24th from 10 a.m. to 2, and then weekday voting the 26th of August through August 30th, 9:30 to 2:30. And it's 25 hours for the week and 4 hours on the weekend. And this is addition to the early voting by mail.
That's what she wants. I support her.
So I move that we approve the request of the town clerk and board of registrars for the town of Hadley to hold early in-person weekend voting for the September 3rd, 2024 state primary on Saturday, August 24th, 2024, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. and weekday voting August 26th, 2024 through Friday, August 30th, 2024, from 9:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. each day for a total of 25 hours for the week and 4 hours on the weekend at the town clerk's office.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Amy, seconded by Jane. Any discussion? If not, roll call vote.
Roll call vote, Phil,
Yes.
Parsons.
Yes.
Keegan,
Yes.
and Nevin Smith.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, item 7.8, under new business. The special town meeting is going to be upon us before we know it. So Carolyn, you want to talk about the warrant?
It's there. It is your bare bones template, since we don't have articles or budgets or all of anything that goes into it yet. So I just need you to open the warrant.
I'll make a motion to open the warrant for special town meeting scheduled on Thursday, the 24th day of October, 2024.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, motion made by Amy, seconded by Jane. Roll call vote, please.
Roll call vote, Phil,
Yes.
Parsons.
Yes.
Keegan,
Yes.
and Nevin Smith.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda, Carolyn, we have the town administrators 2024, so last year's goals, and Carolyn is going to provide us with an update.
All right, so what is in red is an update from what I had given in December, I think it was. So for the benefit of the public, do you want me to read those, Molly? Each
Sure,
goal?
yeah, that'd be
Okay.
great.
So the first goal is propose an organizational chart that addresses both immediate and long-term needs of the town. New organizational chart will address improved resource management, clearer accountability, and succession planning for key positions. What has happened since December, in December, I listed the organizational chart was completed and provided by the Human Resource Director. What's been added is that formally the Hadley form of government and the Strong Town Administrator study is in progress. The Collins Center is providing oversight. It's a separate division than who did the compensation study. And we did a call for participation that is due Friday for the committee. That only one, so we'll have to see what the next steps, how you guys want to move forward with that. So that is, the Collins Center will be overseeing the public engagement and a final report to the select board. The classification and compensation study is completed, but the final approval has not been released. There's a couple more items that the select board's going to be reviewing tonight and another meeting if needed. The Collins Center will begin a succession plan review in September. I did clarify that with them, that would be starting in September. The second goal was to improve financial position of the town through promotion of revenue enhancement, exploration of service delivery options, and grant opportunities. I don't know if you want me to read the former update or just up to date now is we really, Scott and I focused on the asset management grant for both wastewater and water, primarily because it would do an asset management of all of our capital issues and infrastructure problems, and as well as personnel, the issues that we're having. And both of those grant requests were awarded, and matching funds were also approved at town meetings. So I'm looking forward to seeing the results of that. The third is develop a comprehensive communication improvement plan to promote transparency, community dialogue with various stakeholders, and timely information sharing with municipal employees, volunteers, and elected officials. Was able to accomplish more in the fall, but right now I actually had an opportunity to go to a couple workshops for Mass Municipal Association, and was able to talk to some area town administrators, and there were some really interesting options that were shared. So I'd like to pursue that as time gets up. But I do think this goal specifically will definitely be on next year's goal, this coming year's goal as well. I think there's lots of opportunities for that. Number 4 is lead efforts to improve information technology access and security across all municipal departments. Just as a review, we changed to .org to .gov, multi-factor authentication. Thank you. Provided the select board with Chromebooks. I see one. Maybe David's using his. And worked with Jennifer Northeast to do a phishing campaign and cybersecurity trainings. All the buildings are now connected to one phone system. And Kyle, who is a firefighter and also comes with IT experience, who we've been working with, it did apply for a cybersecurity grant, so we're waiting to see the results of that. And he has performed an inventory status assessment of the whole town's IT service, which included cost reductions, looking at current IT vendor relationships, and identifying separate IT needs for departments. So it was a very interesting report that he shared with me. So at some point I would like to probably summarize it and simplify it. We also did, Kyle and our vendor, Northeast, did meet to talk about roles, and still working that out, definitely still working that out, but made some progress there to see where we're at for our IT needs for our departments. So that's
Anybody have any questions for Carolyn or comments or? Okay, so what we had talked about just in terms of next steps, we had asked, and it looks like the description of 7.9 got modified, but basically, I think I'm still okay within it. In terms of next steps, we had asked for Carolyn to update us on her goals that were established last year. And the performance review process would be, we did locate the templates that were used. So the last one was done actually 2 years ago when Jen Travato was here. And Carolyn and Jen had recommended a 360-degree review process. So that would entail, so Carolyn would do a self-evaluation. The department heads or key contacts would have the opportunity to provide feedback. And then there's another template for the select board as the kind of the supervising authority. So the templates are a little bit different depending on who's receiving them. So we wanted Carolyn to have the opportunity to tell us how she, what accomplishments she made relative to her goals from last year. That will feed into the performance review process, because we'll be doing kind of high level, communication, interpersonal skills, those types of general categories, along with our assessment of performance against these goals. So I think that's the next step, and then that leads into goal setting for FY25. So as Carolyn said, some of these may be a continuation. So I would I mean, I'm going to recommend that you think about what the goals for FY25 should be and present them to us, and then we can provide feedback on it. If anybody wants to feed, ideas to Carolyn,
Yeah, I
guess
think they
we're
should
welcome to do
definitely
that.
combine goals. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, you were helpful last year, 2 years, it was really 2 years ago.
Well, these were from last year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't do the performance review, I guess, last year,
Oh,
but
that's
we
right.
set the goals
Yeah.
last year.
Yeah.
So what does everybody think about that? For next steps?
Sounds like a plan.
Sounds like a plan. Okay. All right. So I'll work with Carolyn to get those out. And then maybe we can come up with I guess, summer vacations. And so it'll be hard to get everybody coming in and out, but hopefully if we can gather all of that feedback in, August, we can get back to this, maybe the latter part of August as far as the performance review timeframe.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. All right. Anything else on this topic? If not, floor is still yours. I get to do the
So
administrative report.
Jennifer can vouch for me. How many times did my computer die on me today? And I'm getting a new one tomorrow.
9:30.
So if you look, and you were over my shoulder when I placed it in board docs. It is not there.
It's not here. You
So-
want to hit the highlights?
So hit the highlights. Well, I do want to just kudos to Scott and his department today after the storm. There was a lot of cleanup in town. And so just a lot of work there. One of the pumps on Holly Road,
The pump station?
the electrical was destroyed. So that Scott and Sue worked on that as far as insurance, helping to cover the costs of that. But so it was a lot of work today. And I just wanted to say thank you to them. The highlights, I wish I had I don't even think I can pull up an old report here. I was on vacation for a week, so it's a few days of updates. I apologize. I just noticed that.
Yeah. Now, how about the projects? Any movement on the DPW building?
So, yeah, thank you. So they, as I had mentioned, I think before, the bid for the first OPM is very, very high. And I spoke with the OPM and so did Jim to kind of talk more. And I think Tommy was there too. Tommy left to talk more about what were we seeing? Was there a scope, was the scope off? And we did pull in Weston and Sampson to also talk about, it seemed significantly more than we thought. So significantly more than we had asked town meeting for. So I know that Jim and Weston and Sampson spoke while I was on vacation. There is another meeting scheduled for the building committee to discuss the next step. So I'll probably have more information at the next meeting. Goodwin Memorial and Russell School. I'm going to touch base with Jake for the Russell School because I know he had some updates and I was going to actually get a timeline for the next 2 months. So I'll reach out to him tomorrow for the Russell School for the feasibility study. Goodwin Memorial Building. I am going to be submitting kind of a scope of work to CPA to look at the funding that, as you know, there wasn't enough money allocated to the Goodwin. No, I'm sorry. The money that was allocated was not relevant after COVID. It wasn't enough money to do the renovations that they wanted to do. So that money's still there. So we are looking to see about looking at a space study that would include the town hall as well, because Jennifer pointed out, we've had eight new employees since the last, I think it was, I don't know how long ago it was, 2014 when the last space study was done. So I think we need to have that looked again. And so I'm asking, I'll be on behalf of the select board, if you're okay with this, is to be able to see if we can use some of that Goodwin money to do another study of the space needs, do an inventory of staff, space needs, and how to look at how those two buildings could most efficiently and most appropriately place those departments. So that's where we are with that right now. And I have no movement on I didn't expect to hear from the engineer until this week or next week. So I'll follow up with them. And I have no update. I would have to reach out to Patrick to get an update on the library roof.
Any other questions for Carolyn or?
This was in here and it went away. I remember reading all of these things with words after them. And I saw it and it's gone. So somehow it got in and went away.
Yeah,
I watched you load it.
I know, I did,
I literally watched
but it really was, my computer is so wonky right now. It'll be better tomorrow. So, sorry about that.
Okay, so that is it. Does anybody have any liaison reports they want to share? If not, we'll go to announcements. No? Okay, any announcements? I just have one. And actually, I'm delinquent. I believe I'll have one next week that I'm missing right now. But I just wanted, on behalf of the select board, to give a shout out to our assistant assessor, Dan Zadanek. He had some planned leave and he hasn't been around for a while and just not the same without him. So, so I have a feeling Dan may be at home watching, and if he is, just letting you know that we'll be here when you get back.
Yeah, we miss Dan.
So.
Susan's waving her hand, so maybe she has.
So.
Oh, she's clapping? Oh, that's a
Oh,
clap.
she's
Oh,
clapping.
I didn't know that you could do that.
That's under reactions, yeah. Okay, so I believe that we are ready to go into executive session. Okay, so I would like to make a motion that we enter executive session pursuant to Mass General Laws, Section 30A, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation, if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, for the compensation study, the municipal employee union and firefighters union. And I think there's another one.
No, I think that's it.
Yeah, cross off on the bottom
That's it.
section.
That got crossed off. Yeah. Oh, no, I said compensation study. Okay. All right. And if the chair so declares and as.
Not convening open session.
Yes, yeah, I was just gonna get to that. And not to reconvene an open session. Okay. Second. Okay, so motion made by the chair, seconded by Amy. Roll call vote.
Roll call vote. Phil,
Yes.
Parsons,
Yes.
Keegan,
Yes.
and Nevin Smith.
Yes.